On April 5, 2025, a wave of dissent swept across the United States. From coast to coast, citizens united under the banner of "Hands Off." These nationwide protests marked the most significant opposition since Trump's return to power in January 2025. The targets of their ire? President Donald Trump and his controversial advisor, Elon Musk. The protests were sparked by a potent cocktail of grievances. Trump, in his signature style, had unleashed a series of policies that sent shockwaves through the nation. These included aggressive government downsizing, radical economic reforms, and a renewed assault on social safety nets. Adding fuel to the fire was Elon Musk, the tech mogul now heading the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Musk, with his characteristic zeal for disruption, had embarked on a crusade to streamline government operations, often at the expense of essential services and public sector jobs. The protests, however, were about much more than just economic anxiety. They represented a visceral rejection of the Trump-Musk agenda, which many saw as a direct attack on the very fabric of American society. From concerns over human rights to anxieties about the erosion of democratic norms, the hands-off movement became a lightning rod for a nation grappling with deep-seated fears about its future. At the heart of the hands-off protests lay a multitude of grievances, each one a testament to the far-reaching impact of the Trump-Musk agenda. The administration's aggressive economic policies, particularly the imposition of sweeping tariffs, had sent ripples of uncertainty through the global market. These tariffs, while touted as a means to protect American jobs, had instead ignited fears of a trade war, with potentially devastating consequences for businesses and consumers alike. Further stoking the flames of discontent were the administration's proposed cuts to social safety net programs. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, long considered untouchable pillars of the American social contract, were now on the chopping block, deemed expendable casualties in the pursuit of fiscal austerity. For millions of Americans, particularly the elderly and vulnerable, these programs were not mere abstractions. They were lifelines, providing essential healthcare, financial security, and a sense of dignity. The prospect of their dismantling was unthinkable, an affront to their basic rights and a betrayal of the government's fundamental duty to its citizens. Beyond the economic anxieties, the protests also reflected deep-seated concerns about human rights and social justice. Trump, never one to shy away from divisive rhetoric, had renewed his attacks on immigrants, minorities, and the LGBTQ+ community. Musk, despite his self-professed commitment to progressive values, had remained largely silent on these issues. His silence interpreted by many as tacit complicity. This perceived indifference to the plight of marginalized communities further fueled the flames of resistance, galvanizing activists and allies to take to the streets in a powerful display of solidarity. The hands-off protests were not confined to American soil. Across the globe, from the bustling metropolises of Europe to the vibrant cities of Latin America, a chorus of dissent rose in solidarity with the American protesters. In London, Berlin, Paris, Rome, and Madrid, thousands gathered in front of American embassies and consulates, their voices echoing the concerns of their counterparts across the Atlantic. The international community, long accustomed to viewing the United States as a beacon of democracy and human rights, watched with a mixture of disbelief and dismay as the Trump administration continued its descent into what many perceived as authoritarianism and xenophobia. The hands-off protests, with their global reach and resounding message of resistance, served as a stark reminder that the values of freedom, equality, and justice transcended national boundaries. The world was watching, and it was clear that the actions of the Trump administration had consequences that extended far beyond the borders of the United States. The hands-off protests were not merely a domestic political crisis, they were a global referendum on the soul of America. The hands-off protests of April 5, 2025, were not an end in themselves. They were a beginning, a clarion call for sustained resistance against an administration seemingly determined to dismantle the very foundations of American democracy and social justice. The protests demonstrated the power of collective action, the ability of ordinary citizens to unite across their differences and raise their voices in defiance of injustice. However, the road ahead promised to be long and arduous. The Trump administration, emboldened by its recent electoral victory, showed no signs of backing down from its controversial agenda. The hands-off protests, while a powerful display of popular dissent, were but a single battle in a larger war for the soul of America. The future of the resistance would depend on the ability of the protesters to maintain their momentum, to forge new alliances, and to develop innovative strategies for holding the powerful accountable. The hands-off movement represented a flickering ember of hope in a time of growing darkness. It remained to be seen whether this ember could be fanned into a roaring fire of resistance, capable of illuminating a path towards a more just and equitable future for all.